tell us what brought you here and what are expectations from COP11?
I'm here as part of a delegation from WWF International, the marine program team who are based in Gland in Switzerland. And we're here to really try to raise the profile of marine protected areas on the global stage so that policymakers who are here from all around the world begin to recognize that MPAs, or marine protected areas, are not just about biodiversity conservation. They also bring huge benefits to people, to economies, and to societies at large, and not just those coastal communities that are next to them, but the broader global population.
A very interesting concept called bright spots have been discussed around. Tell us something about it. What exactly is bright spots?
Bright Spots is an initiative that's being promoted by a number of organizations around the world, including Rare Conservation, to really raise the profile of innovative success stories in coastal conservation and community development that really need to be shouted about at a global level to recognize this innovation and to help encourage scaling of that success.
So, give me an example and please help me understand how does it start and what is the mechanism and probably an example of bright spots will help me understand. Yep, that'll work.
Right. So in Madagascar there are a number of really encouraging innovations, we call them bright spots, in marine conservation that have developed over the last 5 to 10 years. One that we're talking about a lot recently is the almost explosion in interest that we're seeing in community-based marine management. So that's creating protected areas in the ocean that are managed by communities with the support of the government, but where many of the decisions are made at a local level. And this has many advantages. It makes these areas more adaptable, it means they're low cost, it means they have local credibility and respect. And what's really interesting in the example of Madagascar is that the catalyst for conservation in many of these sites has actually been fisheries. Communities are starting to see that conservation makes economic sense. That when a fishery is managed responsibly, it starts to pay off in interest, kind of like interest on an endowment or a natural trust fund, and that it's really not worth eroding that natural capital that's underlying that productivity. And when that signal, when that profitability gets translated to the supply chain, so that's to the private sector that's buying the catch, then there's a tremendously powerful model that can be taken to scale. And one of the things that we've seen in Madagascar over the last 10 years is the expansion of small-scale fisheries management projects over hundreds of kilometers of coastline, really driven very much by the fishermen themselves and with the support of both the fishing companies, the buyers, and the government. So it's a really successful story. And just 2 months ago, this particular bright spot was replicated by the government of Mauritius. So it's kind of gone international within the Western Indian Ocean region. So a really positive, scalable, and financially sustainable model for starting marine conservation, a powerful demonstration and catalyst.
Wonderful. I mean, sounds really amazing. But then, help me understand these bright spots. Implementation have basic principles, and how can it be replicated elsewhere? I mean, can those principles be replicated with a little bit of customization, or how does it typically work?
Well, what we've seen with the example in the Western Indian Ocean, so that's the islands off East Africa, is that when there is a comparable ecological and socioeconomic context, replication can take place. But yes, it really does depend on having the right stakeholders, the right partners at a local level to copy and to emulate the initiative. Obviously, that does require a certain amount of adaptation. Things that are legal in Madagascar, or legal mechanisms or frameworks that are used to govern natural resources in Madagascar, for example, might not be appropriate to Mauritius. So that's why it requires such multilateral, multi-level support from the government right through to communities and the private sector. And NGOs also play a powerful role in this process in helping to share and to disseminate some of these stories.